Brazil is set to host the upcoming BRICS Summit and with the focus on strengthening cooperation among global South nations. So, what specific outcomes do you anticipate from the summit, especially amid its ongoing trade barriers and geopolitical uncertainty?
Well, the BRICS have become much more important as a cooperation mechanism. We now have new members in the group since 2024. The BRICS are larger, and they share a proportion of GDP, world population, territory, which are very high. So when they get together, they need to take stances on certain crucial issues. For example, in the political terrain, what stance will the BRICS as a group take with respect to the genocide going on in Gaza? It's one important question that I would like to see when leaders make their declaration. The other thing is, how far will the BRICS go, for example, in producing as a group alternatives to the Western-dominated system that is increasingly dysfunctional? Will we move forward on that? Or will we still remain at the level of preparation and reflection? These are two examples of important points that I'm looking forward to see how the BRICS leaders will respond.
We know you used to work as the former IMF Executive Director and also the Vice President of the New Development Bank. What are your observations on the two institutions in their engagement with the developing countries, especially when we zoom into the NDB, the New Development Bank? How are the bank and also its CRA, the BRICS Contingent Reserve Arrangement, unlocking development potential and providing alternative to traditional Western-dominated financial systems?
In my time in the IMF as Executive Director for Brazil and other countries, I learned that the IMF is very difficult to reform. We did make some progress in reforming the IMF, but fundamentally the institution remains a Western-controlled institution that not always serves the needs of developing countries. Often they mistreat countries, especially those that are seen as being rivals or hostile to the West. So it is an uneven institution. Now, one of the reasons why the BRICS 10 years ago established the NDB, the New Development Bank, and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement is precisely the fact that we were, as a group, at the time we were only 5 countries, as a group, we were dissatisfied with the way the existing Western-controlled institutions were working, the IMF and also the World Bank, for example. Now, we did an effort. I participated in both institutions in the creation of the CRA, and I was one of the founding members of the NDB. Our intention was exactly that, to create alternatives to the existing Western-dominated system. We have made progress in the NDB, but we are still far from achieving our initial goal of having a global bank that can play a global role for the developing countries. As for the CRA, their progress has been very little because our central banks have basically frozen the CRA, the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. And we need to unblock it to make it effective if we are serious about building an alternative to the IMF.
What are the prospects and challenges so far of establishing this BRICS currency, and how would it impact the global financial system?
Look, the BRICS currency issue is one of the fundamental issues before the group. If we do manage to create a common reserve currency, this will have a major impact on the international scene. Now, the international monetary system is dominated by the dollar, and the dollar has created many problems for many countries. So countries want to seek alternatives. But let me just clarify briefly. There's a lot of confusion about this issue. Many people think that the BRICS would try to create a unified currency with a common central bank, like the euro in Europe. No, it's not that. If we do reach this point, we will create a common reserve currency for international payments, only for international payments, that would circulate alongside our national currencies, and our central bank would continue to function as they do.
And it welcomes not only countries from the global south, but also countries from the global north, right? The BRICS currency, or is only designed for countries who join the BRICS mechanism?
A joint currency, a joint reserve currency would be constructed by the BRICS or a subset of the BRICS. Initially, it would be defined by us or by a subset of the group. But as it goes forward and it gains credibility, nor the developed countries can use this currency as well if they wish to do so.
With the increasing influence of developing countries nowadays, reflecting on your tenure at the International Monetary Fund and also the NDB, how can BRICS nations amplify their voices of the Global South in international institutions like the WTO and also the United Nations? And what strategies should they adopt to strengthen their own economic governance and policy frameworks?
Look, the WTO is a sort of a hopeless case. It's paralyzed and will not recover, I believe. Also, the UN has many problems. But for example, we could try to increase the number of permanent members of the Security Council of the UN. Now, in the financial field, in monetary and financial field, the important thing is for BRICS to realize that we are the only group that can offer alternatives to the Global South countries. And I think the Global South countries, the other Global South countries, are looking to us to provide alternatives to the dysfunctional Western-dominated system.
And lastly, so let's talk about China-Brazil bilateral ties. How do you assess the current state of China-Brazil cooperation within the BRICS framework, and what areas hold the most promise for future collaboration?
China is the major trading partner of Brazil, by far. And Brazil is the most important country in Latin America for China because of the size of Brazil in Latin America. So it's extremely important for the BRICS as a group that bilateral relations between China and Brazil develop more. For example, how? If we could have more manufacturing exports from Brazil to China, provided that's possible in a competitive way, China could invest in Brazil, not only buying existing productive capacity, but creating productive capacity and allowing for technology transfers to occur. So China is doing some of these things, but we need to intensify that. And also in the financial field, to conclude, I would say that China can play a role in gradually buying more bonds issued by the Brazilian Treasury. This would make the Brazilian government more independent of Western and domestic private capital markets that often function as a factor of destabilization of countries in the Global South. So China can have a stabilizing role there as well.